Welcome back to Bunny Banter, the first and only podcast for everything Killer Bunnies. I'm your host Matt, here with co-host Mikey.
Hello.
And as a guest today, we have the famous Joe Slack.
Oh man, I'm famous now?
You've been famous for a while.
Wow, that's awesome.
Okay, what are we talking about today, Mikey?
We are talking about promo cards.
Yeah, so we're talking today about the promo cards that were released last year and the ones released with the London booster, because we haven't talked about any of them yet. They'll be re-released in the Ketchup booster far out from now, but we might as well talk about them now since we have them. Haha. And with the new Killer Bunnies website, there have been some changes, so it's cool to cover those. So let's get right into it. The first ones we're talking about today, I'm going to put the pictures up for the YouTube. The Enchanted Bunnies. So they're interesting. The Enchanted Bunnies are a single color bunny that can't have any bunny modifiers, which is interesting. And if your opponent has an Enchanted Bunny and you have an Enchanted Bunny, you can use yours to kill theirs instead of playing it as a bunny. So essentially, we have a lower value bunny than something like a Sinister or Gleeful. What do you think about that, Joe?
I think that it's kind of a neat mechanic because if you have an enchanted bunny and someone shows you they have an enchanted bunny, I mean that could be some good wheeling and dealing going on because you don't really want them to play that, right? Yeah, I don't know, I think it's kind of it's a neat retake on the bunnies without making like another double or not double, but like pink ultimate bunny. I can't remember the name of the card now, but the pink one with all the bunnies in one.
Extra super pink.
Thank you. It's a variation without being that powerful, so I think it's kind of nice.
Yeah, what do you think, Mikey?
I think it's an interesting concept. I'm reading here on the site, and it says that when you, if used on a player's turn to sacrifice an enchanted bunny to immediately eliminate another enchanted bunny, then both enchanted bunny cards are discarded. I think that's interesting because you might decide then that you don't want to kill the other person's enchanted bunny. If you only have the enchanted bunny and they only have the enchanted bunny, well, you can be, unless they have another bunny coming up, you can be pretty darn sure that you're safe. And unless you want to play passive strats, they're pretty safe too. But also, if somebody has a lot of bunnies and you have an enchanted bunny and they have an enchanted bunny, well, let's just eliminate one of theirs and eliminate one of mine. So I don't know. I think it's actually it's good for passive strats.
Yeah, I quite agree. It is definitely a lower value bunny, considering that it can't have bunny modifiers with the exception of Care to Power. We'll get to that in a second. And it can be eliminated instantly by another Enchanted Bunny, which I suppose is a benefit for whoever profits more off of that. That's a difficult situation to analyze. But it's certainly in general lower value just by not being able to have bunny modifiers. So yes, that would fit wonderfully into passive strategy. So it's nice to see more bunnies that fit into that. I've always said, it'd be nice to have lower value bunnies that, don't want to be targeted. I said that quite a while ago to Jeff. I can't remember I think it was about Chris's custom card burrowing bunnies, which are a completely different thing and off topic for this episode. But the idea there was bunnies that would provide some benefit when they died, so you wouldn't exactly want to kill them. This is a much more streamlined. This bunny is low value anyways. It's not really a threat. You don't have to worry about the typical things of if my opponent draws a rank, that the rank can't go on this because it can't have a bunny modifier. Halo can't go on this. All of the big threats don't apply to this, so it's not a big target to kill. So it's a easy target to keep, I suppose, even though it's a bit counterintuitive how a bunny could be easier to kill and therefore die less. But yeah, it's interesting. Uh, Note that I don't think any of us, or let's see, I know I haven't played with these promos yet. I'm personally waiting until they are released in the catch-up booster deck a while from now. Joe, have you played with the promos yet?
Not this one. A few of them. Like I played with the wow, I'm so bad with words today. Meditation Bunny.
Oh,
That one
cool,
I
yeah.
played with.
Yeah.
That's out of scope for this episode, but this one I haven't.
Well, we'll get to the meditation bunny in just a bit here, but yes. So that gives everyone a general idea of where these discussions are coming from. You know, we haven't played much with the new promos, but we're just analyzing them before the fact. So let's move on to the next three we have, and we'll do these one at a time, I suppose. Carrot of Power. So, Carrot of Power is the Enchanted Bunny modifier. It is the only Enchanted Bunny modifier, so it's interesting. So you can use it to protect an Enchanted Bunny from being eliminated by another Enchanted Bunny. So you can remove the weakness of that Enchanted Bunny. That's pretty cool. If you don't have Enchanted Bunny, it's still a pretty decent card because you can use it to choose a number of carrots equal to the tens place of the current date. So that'll be either 1, 2, or 3 carrots, or 0, since it's the tens place. If it's the 1st to the 9th of the month. So it could be choose 3 carrots potentially. On a different day, it might only be good as the Enchanted Bunny modifier. What do you think about this card, Mikey?
I think it's kind of neat. I wonder if you have the Carrot of Power and you put it on your Enchanted Bunny, and then you go to eliminate someone else's Enchanted Bunny, does your Enchanted Bunny get discarded? Or since it has the Carrot of Power, does it get to stay in the game?
That's an excellent question that I was wondering about as I was reading that off, because the Enchanted Bunnies are notably sacrificed when used to eliminate another bunny. Although even then, the sacrifice, I'm not quite sure on how that works, if you can do that while the Enchanted Bunny is in the bunny circle, or if you have to do it when you play the Enchanted Bunny. I think that's I don't know. I'm rating it a couple of different ways here, and it's difficult to determine. If it needs to be done when you play the bunny, then of course it won't have the carrot of power, and therefore the clarification doesn't matter. But if the sacrifice is done while it's in the bunny circle, then it could be the case that if your enchanted bunny has the carrot of power, you can just eliminate all the other enchanted bunnies and your bunny will be just fine, which would be kind of cool. Kind of like a super bunny effect. A little bit. What do you think, Joe?
I think that's interesting. I didn't even consider that Mikey's point there. Huh. So at first I was thinking maybe this is not that great of a card for the enchanted part. But now I don't know. I guess we'll have to clarify that. The number one thing I see on this card, though, is it is a draw a carrot that is non-aggressive. I mean, it's not a draw a carrot, but, it can have that effect. And just off the top of my head, I can't think of any other cards that just let you grab carrots that aren't aggressive.
There are very few, and that's good of you to bring that up, because the up for grabs is one of them. It lets you choose up to 2 carrots. This could be a choose 3 carrots non-aggressive. That's quite strong, actually. It's taken for granted the differences between aggressive cards and non-aggressive cards. Usually there's a big power difference. The bigger the card, the maybe you need to keep a bunny, maybe it's a pink circle card, you need to keep a bunny at all times because the continuous effect is quite strong, that sort of thing. That's how game balance kind of works. This card is non-aggressive, which is interesting for a potentially choose 3 carrots, but since it's based on the current date rather than a dice roll or something like that. I think it's I wouldn't consider it an amazing card, but at the same time, it is an amazing card if it is that non-aggressive choose 3 cards, because that's quite a good effect.
I had another thought. Imagine if in the scenario where you can play your Enchanted Bunny, once it's in the bunny circle, you can play it on someone else to eliminate theirs. Imagine then that you have the carrot of power on your Enchanted Bunny, and then I guess it doesn't matter. Well, I'll tell you what I was going to say, and then I'll explain why it doesn't matter. I was going to say that imagine you had the carrot of power on your Enchanted Bunny, and then... Oh, wait, it does matter. Okay. And then you play it on somebody else's, eliminate their Enchanted Bunny, and then you buy the Enchanted Bunny from the discard pile. You have the opportunity then to buy to get rid of somebody's Enchanted Bunny and also purchase the white one. Now it doesn't. Now that I'm saying it out loud, it doesn't sound as amazing as I thought it did in my head. But that's a thought.
It does bring up some perhaps aggressive passive potential. One of my favorite aggressive passive strategies is where you very relentlessly attack the opponents, but you never have anything to actually lose yourself, so there's no fear of retaliation. They have a lot of stuff to lose because they've been playing either neutral aggressive, but you just have an Enchanted Bunny and you're just playing nuclear warheads and all of that, and they don't actually want to kill your Enchanted Bunny because it's not actually a threat, but at the same time it's your only bunny, so it creates some interesting situations where would that aggressive passive player buy back an Enchanted Bunny? It's worth considering.
I don't think I would buy back the. I wouldn't buy back if I had the yellow one. I wouldn't buy back the blue one, but I would buy back the white one.
Yeah, the white one's pretty good. It's worth noting that the white one is mechanically similar to the free agent. However, it can also be red and pink.
Mm-hmm.
So you can triplet with your red or pink bunnies. So it's quite flexible. It's just very good. Complete the triplet.
Mm-hmm.
Triplets aren't very difficult to come by in full set anyways, but it could come in clutch there.
Yeah. Additionally, nobody except the person with the bunny with the carrot of power is going to want to buy back an Enchanted Bunny because it'll just be killed right away.
Potentially.
So, yeah.
If the other player has an Enchanted Bunny, yes.
Yeah. So, now, this white Enchanted Bunny, if it takes on pink or red, does it get... No, I guess it doesn't because it's not any of the special.
Right,
Or
yeah.
it's one of the original ones. Okay. I'm just thinking out loud now.
Yeah, they're interesting, but how about we move on to the second card in that list, the Cesium Francis. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the subtitle of that, but it's there. You can read it. It's a very special, non-aggressive. We're getting quite a few non-aggressive cards. And it can be used once by a player to eliminate plutonium radiation. That's a big one. Necrophagy. That's a big one. Mad Vine Disease. That's a big one. And then the other three we don't know about yet. Claustrophobia, Y2K Bug, and Bird Flu. I believe Y2K Bug is in the list of cake batter cards, but of course we haven't seen it yet, so we don't know what to expect from that. But looking right away, we see three very impactful cards that Cesium Francis can stop. What do you think about that, Joe?
So there's a couple of cards like this, I know, that in the right situation, it's awesome. right? Because you think you're gonna do some serious damage, and then oh, whoops, you're not. So situationally, I think it's pretty cool. I also Googled that last word to try to figure out how to pronounce it, and the only references are back to Killer Bunnies. So I have no idea what the reference here is or how to pronounce that.
What do you think, Mikey?
I think I mean, in a limited amount of situations, it's good. It's not extraordinary. Um, that's one thing that I'm kind of gathering about a lot of these promo cards is they're not all that extraordinary just because, yeah, they might be able to do some cool things, but it's only in a limited amount of situations that they can do these things. And in this case, you said there were 3 things that we don't even have yet. So they can only eliminate 3 things, which, the likelihood of getting even one of those 3 things in a full set game is not likely. But if you just happen to have that and somebody plays one of those, happy day for you.
Very happy day. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what the last 3 are there, but seeing these first 3, I imagine they must be pretty spooky. So once Ketchup Booster's released, we'll probably have all of them, so that'll be cool. We'll have to see if this very special is actually worth saving in the hand or even running through and saving it, wasting a tempo more or less. But we'll see how that goes. It's a relatively simple card for a very complex name. Now, here's an interesting one. Tear Me a New One, which has a clause that was added recently with the update of the new website, so that's important. So let me read the first part here. May be used once by a player to immediately steal all carrots received by an opponent during the current turn. Tear Me a New One may be used at any time during the current turn, but only by the game's owner, or with the owner's permission, by tearing the card in half. Oh my! So this one's interesting. As a game owner, I can't say that I would ever tear this card in half. So let's before we talk about that, let's look at the second clause that was added recently. Tear Me a New One may also be used by a player who has just been scolded by an opponent to steal one of the opponent's carrots. And it does not require the card to be torn in half in that case. What do you think about that, Mikey?
I like this second clause because I feel like you had said, I think without a way for us to acquire another card, just that singular card after it being torn, nobody's going to want to play this unless you're in a dire situation. Perhaps you are on your deathbed and it is your last game of Killer Bunnies ever, and you are losing horribly because you have maybe 1 carrot and your opponent, say it's a 2-player game, has all of the other carrots. And then you play it. I think that is the only one instance in which I would play this card by actually tearing it in half. So the second clause is very nice.
2 things. First, you can only steal the carrots that were gained on that turn, so it's good against like a half-price coupon situation. They bought 10 carrots in the same turn. Pretty good. 1 card, very special, steal 10 carrots. Whoa! Value. Second thing, what if Ultra Pro started selling this card as a single card to replace it once you actually tear it in half from your ketchup booster? They just start selling these as promos individually. Would you play it then?
Perhaps. I would have to pay though.
Pay to win.
I would have to pay money to get the new card. So because I had to pay money, I would rather just keep it. But I'd be more likely because I would know that I could buy it. So if I was in a desperate situation, maybe I would play it.
The best card in the game is the credit card, as they say. What do you think, Joe?
So if anyone from Ultra Pro is listening to this, I will buy a 50-pack of this card. I just want that on the record, because then I will use it in game. I think from a rule standpoint, you two hit it on the head. Maybe from like a background perspective, if you're not a board gaming nerd, like I know, well, I am, and I think you guys are too. There's a new format or newer format of board games called legacy games, and in them you put stickers on things, you write Sharpies on things, and you rip cards in half when you play them. And so this is kind of like a parody of that, as far as I know. And it's a pretty effective parody, I think. It's pretty clever. I think this is probably my favorite promo card of this series.
Nice. I've always said we needed legacy Killer Bunnies. So Jeff, I know you're listening. Start working on it. Legacy Killer Bunnies.
Oh, I don't like legacy.
because I like the idea of Abu being ripped in half.
I thought Legacy Killer Bunnies was just being angry the next game about the last game.
Oh, well, that's true. We already do have that aspect, so I suppose, but not so much the tearing cards in half part. It'd be kind of like, oh, what's the legacy game that's like a Euro game that you build the game as you go?
That is a...
Is it like something like Charterstone or something like that?
Oh, Charterstone. I've not played that one. Yeah.
I'm thinking kind of along those lines, except you're building your own full set.
Actually, that'd be kind of cool with like little packets with like miniature boosters.
Yeah, like mini boosters, and there would be some scenarios where certain cards wouldn't be added, so everyone's full set would be kind of different by the end of it.
Ooh.
I think that would be really cool. It'd be a whole lot of work to develop it, but I would pay big money for it.
And it'd be really cool if at the end of the game, it was then a booster you could mix back into your base set.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Cards yet.
That'd be interesting to canonize it. Oh, yeah, that would be quite cool. But yeah,
I would buy it and never play it. I do not like legacy games just for the mere fact that you can never play them again.
Quite true. So I'd have to put it on Tabletop Simulator so we can play it multiple times. Haha.
There you go.
Pro strats. Unless you're one of those legacy players that doesn't actually do any of the tear the card in half stuff, and they just set things off to the side and do all that stuff, that they can replay it, which is...
It's not satisfying.
It's not satisfying. I completely understand that. I'd probably be one of those, but shame on them. I'm speaking to myself when I say that. Okay, so that was Tear Me a New One. So at this point, we can move on to the next 3 cards. Let's see. Oh, I put the Meditation Money Bunnies next. So those guys are interesting. Just like the Enchanted Bunnies, you have all the colors, including a white one. And they read at the start of each of oh, hold on, I lost my text. Okay. So you get all the common text of it can form a triplet, all that stuff. And then here's the important part. At the start of each of the player's turns, the player will receive $1 for each Meditation Money Bunny that he has in his area of the bunny circle. So if you have one Meditation Money Bunny, $1 per turn. Not a spending immediately situation. You get the $1. Not that it matters since medals exist anyways, but say the medals weren't available, there's a difference there. But, if you get 2 or 3 or $4 per turn seems pretty good. What do you think, Mikey?
Think it sounds like a good deal. Couple questions that I have about them. Can they... I would assume that if you had 3 Meditation Money Bunnies, you would have a triplet.
Correct.
Can they be paired with ones of similar colors?
Yes.
And what about the white one?
The white one can be any of the colors, including red or pink.
Okay, so it's just like the Enchanted Bunny, kind of. Not
right.
really.
Yep.
Like that.
Same sort of color scheme.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a cool idea. I feel like these would be killed really fast, but I mean that it depends because they only generate $1 per turn. Now, $1 per turn is $1 more than you normally would get per turn, but
it's a half red gleeful.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like if you had just a bunch of, blue bunnies and a meditation money bunny, obviously that's the first one that's going to be targeted. So now put Heavenly Halo on meditation money bunny, and there you have a good deal.
What do you think, Joe?
So I mentioned we played with this card, but the way you described it is not how we played it. So I'm thinking we played it wrong.
Maybe I described it wrong. How did you play it?
The way we played it, so the very first line at the start of each of his turns, and so we actually had one player who had 3 of these, and so 3 times at the start of his turn he got $1 for every bunny, so he got $9, not 3.
I see what you mean. So you're wondering if they stack exponentially.
That's how we did it, but now I'm wondering if that's wrong.
I could see how you'd read that. I don't believe that's the case. I'm trying to remember from a phone call with Jeff, but I see where you got that. Which would make things so certainly more interesting. $9 per turn. Holy cow.
Well, because if you have a red, which one is it that generates the dollar? I already forgot.
The red gleeful.
Red gleeful and a half red gleeful, they both generate money.
Right.
So would this work like that or not?
I'm not sure. Well, considering in the bunny bits, it uses the same phrase. At the start of each of his turns, the player will receive $1 for every meditation money bunny he has in the area bunny circle. I wouldn't think that's on a per bunny basis.
That would make sense. So, yeah, actually reading that in the bunny bits, I would have to agree with that. So we were just making it way more powerful than it needed to be.
House rules.
Yeah, why not?
There you go. Now there's something we haven't mentioned here, and that's that they each have a fruit symbol, and the matching atomic pastry can be exploded at full force under those bunnies. Atomic pastries are coming out in cake batter, so we won't talk too much about them, but know that these bunnies will have an interaction with the atomic pastries, and it seems like a negative interaction, so they have a bit of a counter in case they become too strong. The pastries can just make them explode. But yeah, it's interesting. The way I kind of look at these cards is, what happens if we add 7 half-red Gleefuls to the deck in full set? Not too much, probably. But it does make that dollar generation more consistent, but still controlled. I kind of like the idea for the balance of the full set deck. Okay, next set of 3 cards. We have first the Law Enforcement Bunny. This is the white one, which is interesting because it is confirmed that none of the other law enforcement bunnies have a color except for this one. This one is specifically white. And of course it has the same effect as the other law enforcement bunnies, not allowing stuff to be stolen. But the main special thing about it is that it's white, so it can triplet with any other bunny that has the color. So that's pretty cool. What do you think, Mikey?
Ooh. I think that maybe it sounds kind of a little bit OP. Just a tiny bit. Just for the mere fact that it can be combined with any other cards, or any other bunnies of any color.
Or pawn.
Or pawn. Like, that's kind of... Now, I'm still in the mindset of triplets are amazing and so hard to come by. Well, they are amazing. I mean, it's nice to have a triplet. But I'm to the point where every game I play, everybody's at least got one triplet most of the time. So it's not super spectacular anymore. But still, easy triplet. Plus, you have all of the benefits of it being a law enforcement bunny. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
What do you think, Joe?
I didn't realize only the white one counted, And I just looked him up. All of the law enforcement bunnies, both bunnies are the same color.
It's
So
true.
I assumed that meant that this bunny counted. I didn't know that.
That is an assumption that can be made, but it has been confirmed that they don't. And the way that is about 90% consistent to tell if they do or not is whether the bunny has a diagonal gradient in the background. That's about 90% accurate. The exceptions are this one and day trippers. Every other bunny has the standard run gradient. I think it's a horizontal gradient. So that's interesting that the others don't count, but that is intentional. This one is made special that it does have a color.
Isn't that special?
Nope, that's a run. Okay, if it was a special law enforcement bunny, then we really have to start being concerned. Yes, you can save your bunnies now.
Exciting.
3 boosters from now, that'll probably be a thing. Okay, next card. This one's an interesting one. Silent but deadly. It's a aggressive run card. I almost wish it was a special with this effect, but it makes it much more difficult to play. But let me read it off here. Maybe used once by a player who has not spoken for 3 rounds of play to automatically eliminate any bunny in the bunny circle without a bunny modifier. And it mentions the enchanted bunny may always be eliminated since it can't have a bunny modifier. I think that's a bit redundant, but whatever. We have a way to almost unconditionally eliminate a bunny. The only conditions are can't have a bunny modifier. Feels slightly bad since those are often the types that you'd want to eliminate. And that you can't have been speaking for 3 rounds of play. What do you think, Mikey?
Well, I think, first of all, I like the artwork that they chose. Very silent but deadly has a certain connotation to it. But then they chose to apply a Doctor Who reference, I believe.
That's
that
true.
is. So that was a nice choice, very tasteful, I think. But I think this could be a card that Clarissa could play. I don't think she would play it, but she could play it because she is pretty silent most of the time. I think, though I've noticed, I believe, aggressive players tend to be louder than passive players. Frank doesn't talk much. Clarissa doesn't talk much. But so it's kind of a difficult thing. And you might, if you are an aggressive player and you're loud, and you have this card and you want to play it, it's going to be, for those who know that this card exists, it will be rather evident, I think, that you have this card, so people can prepare for it. Is it? Yeah, it's aggressive, so you need a bunny to play. However, it'd be kind of fun to do a bluff. Make people think that you have the card, and then I don't know why that would probably be bad for you, but it would be fun to do anyway, just to make people think you had it. Yeah, that's my thoughts. It's a cool card.
What do you think, Joe?
The first thing I think is I love the art, the tally marks in the border. Really cool looking card. I also think comboing this with the conch, if possible, would be an awesome combo. Because nobody can talk, so then if you could just squeak out 1 round of not talking, and then nobody can talk for 2 rounds, you're free.
That is true. It does more or less counter the conch, since you don't want to be talking anyways. It's an interesting interaction. I think this card fits best with something like the Hermit's neutral strategy, where you are pretty much avoiding social interaction wherever possible anyways. This card will not work well in a group that, what's the word I'm looking for? A group that encourages you to talk through your turn for the sake of the inexperienced players. So therefore, it in those groups, this card will be fairly unplayable. Either that, or you'll have to have 3 very simple turns that are considered not worth talking about. If somebody asks, "Oh yeah, what does that red gleeful do?" Are you just going to sit there and just not say anything? So in groups of experienced players, I think this will actually be stronger, but then they'll know what's going on. So you kind of have to have a little bit of a reputation as someone who's usually quiet anyway. So it's a very difficult card to play. Hence why I was kind of disappointed that wasn't a special, at least for my types of strategies. But for the hermit neutral strategy, is still quite viable. Okay, let's move on to Bunny Lawn 4. It's a special with the pink circle. One of the rare pink circle specials that is used against an opponent, such as, another example would be Japanese Rabbit Trap. So Bunny Lawn 4 can be given to any player, and the player with it saved must have a bunny quadruplet. That's 4 bunnies of the same color or kind to play an extra card a turn, so it turns the requirements of a bunny triplet into a bunny quadruplet. There is some obscure rules here, so let me read through them. It can't be used in April, or on the 4th day of any month, or in any year that's a multiple of 4. And it doesn't affect a zodiac triplet, so that's also interesting. But that's a very rare case. So what do you think, Mikey?
I'm thinking that it's a bad year to play this card.
That is quite true.
That's interesting. When you first read it, and I was reading along, and I just missed the whole entire section where it said, play it on somebody else. It would be an interesting thing if they developed a card, a save special, where you, if you had that card and you had 4, and you had a quadruplet, you could play yet another card. So you would have a triplet, so you play your 2 turns, plus then you could play another card. That's what I was thinking before I realized that. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what this is supposed to do. This is interesting. It's kind of cool. Not for the person who gets played on. It's a sad day for you. That's a really sad day for you because you have to kill all your bunnies in order to get rid of it. That's kind of weird.
Or have it be accidentally stolen with something like the church bunny.
Yeah.
Or exchange it with Talos 4, or trade it with an inexperienced player and make them sad.
No.
Feels bad.
Oh my.
I mean, it's the same special. You could trade it in principle.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that before with these types of specials, but it is saved and it hasn't been traded. So, let's say you had an alliance with another player. Is there something that's stopping you from trading it to a player that doesn't have a bunny? I don't think there is. Can you think of anything offhand, Joe?
No, I don't. If it is a saved special, I wonder if you could trick someone into stealing it.
You could. They could accidentally steal from Church Bunny if they weren't paying attention to card backs.
Ooh. So here's a question. Would you be able to trade it with somebody who doesn't have a bunny? Like you were saying. Because I feel like if you don't have a bunny, you shouldn't even... That's the question that I've had, actually. If you don't have a bunny, can you save a special that has the pink circle?
It's currently up for debate.
I was going to say, that's kind of a hot topic, isn't it?
That is a very hot topic right now. There is a very large debate going on whether... The debate goes something like this, and I'm biased, of course. So I'm going to attempt to portray both sides as accurately as possible. One side says that since the requirement says a bunny must be kept to maintain it, then something like the Halo would be able to maintain it. The other side is saying since it counts as aggressive, the Halo isn't able to maintain it. So that's up for debate. Certainly, if you don't have a bunny at all, you wouldn't be able to save it.
So then you wouldn't. I don't think then you would be able to trade it with somebody who doesn't have a bunny. If they accidentally stole it, they would have to just discard it right away. But I don't. In my head, it doesn't make sense to even allow a trade for that card because, like, it would just have to be discarded. Like, I don't know. For some reason, I feel like it's not viable to trade it with somebody. Like if somebody said, "Oh, I don't have a bunny. I'll trade this with you, and then I'll just discard it and get rid of it for you." Like I don't think that should be allowed.
So
Yeah.
here's another question with it being a special. The first line of text may be given to any player. So if I have that saved as a special, I'm going to activate it and I may give it to another player, right?
You'd give it to another player when you play it as your top run. If you save it yourself, then you're the one taking the detriment, since it's the status of it being saved that's causing the permanent effect.
But if I'm saving it as a special card,
Then you're affected.
wouldn't that mean though I could activate it?
With
I guess that's what I'm wondering now.
with these types of pink circle specials, the activate is the the quote unquote play the card. That is done when you flip over your top run, and the save once it's saved, it's saved. There isn't another play clause because it's the status of it being saved that causes the continuous effect. So it wouldn't make sense to continue the effect somewhere else by saving it somewhere else, since you can't go from saved to saved. Sort of idea. It's complicated, and certainly something that you kind of have to think through a lot. But it doesn't quite make sense to save the special without its saved effect triggering. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I feel like I really, in my heart, feel like this should be a run card. I'm sorry, Jeff. That's how I feel.
I mean, it is the, let me think right now, the fourth of its, wait, no, it's either the third or the fourth of its kind, where you save it on an opponent, which is complicated. There are run cards that are similar but aren't mechanically specials, like Mad Bunny Disease is a bit similar in terms of its mechanic. Calcite Conundrum is the reverse situation, which is a bit similar to the Minolith, but not quite. There's some mechanical distinctions there, and ultimately the mechanics are quite similar. So I can see why you'd like this to be a run card, but it is mechanically similar to the two others.
And I suppose the benefit of being a special is that you can play it instead of your run card. If, maybe the player next to you, his second run card is real good, you can stall it for a round.
I'm not sure on that one for this type of pink circle special, because we know that you cannot do that for the Minolith. You can't.
Really?
You can't. It was accidentally put in the Fantastic Bunny bits that you can, but it contradicted the Minoliths and other pink circle specials bunny bits that say that they have to be run through to be able to do the saved. So in general, I would guess no, but it is a weird case.
Huh. Well, I'm doubling down on that this should be a run card. I'm Joe, and that's my opinion.
There we go. It's an interesting card. Going back to the actual effect. Actually, wait. There was something I wanted to say about Mikey's comments first. Regardless, in general, I think you would be able to trade it to an opponent that doesn't have a bunny. Similarly to how you could play the Halo on a bunny with a rank. The rank would instantly be discarded, But it's a little bit like that situation, but it is definitely sketchy. So let's pretend that situation doesn't exist for a moment. Trade it to an opponent with one bunny. It's slightly weaker in terms of a way to get rid of it, but at the same time, giving it to an opponent with one bunny, they don't care about it unless it's a triplet bunny, and they'll soon
Ooh,
get rid of it anyways. Maybe they even have a starving bunny.
there you go. Trade it to somebody with a starving bunny who has no way to feed it.
Right, yeah, as long as they agree to it, of course.
Yeah.
There has to be that sort of agreement. Maybe you give them a couple carrots to get rid of it. But in general, obviously I haven't played with it, but I don't think having a quadruplet is that big of a penalty. One extra bunny to form a bunny triplet. I mean, if you have it for a long period of time, get early in the game, might be quite relevant. If you were previously going to attempt something like freight train aggressive. I'm kind of looking at this as an aggressive passive / passive neutral player on average. And I'm not too afraid of it. In fact, I might even welcome it. I might play it on myself, just for the sake of attrition strategy from passive. So it's interesting. But it does have that clause that quite a bit of the time it's unplayable. Um, not just in April or the fourth day of any month, but any multiple of 4 in the year. So 1 out of 4 years, this card is unplayable. Oh boy.
Also, that just happens to be leap year.
Quite true.
Racist against leap year.
Except for when it's the 400 divisible by 400 isn't a leap year. So this still counts in that one.
Huh.
I'm remembering that right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Yeah, it's something along those lines. So it's not specifically leap years. It just happens to be 1 out of 100 cases. I mean, 99 out of 100 cases. Okay, shall we move on to the London promos? We first have the Oyster Bunnies. These guys are quite interesting. Again, there's one for each color and white. So similar to the other ones that we talked about today. And these bunnies are pretty standard bunnies. However, they have a built-in oyster cracker, which can force them to move to a underground station. Currently with London, we have the underground stations. Every time the die is rolled, there's potential that a bunny with an oyster cracker could be moved. These bunnies come with oyster crackers by default. Makes for some interesting interactions. What do you think about it, Joe?
I think this is something that the London booster could use. I mean, what it does is right in the name, and I think it's neat.
What do you think about Mikey?
Well, I'm trying to remember. Oh, okay. I remember now. I think the wording is interesting. May be forced to move. The word forced seems interesting. Anyway. Also the word may. Does that mean you don't have to put it on an underground station?
Well, it'd be so if the opponent has the underground station that matches the die roll, they may force you to give it to them.
I see. Yeah, I think this is neat. I mean, there seems to be quite a bit of a theme going on with these promo bunnies, in that there's always the white one that can be utilized with any color, including pink and red. But I don't know. Well, they're just about as. I can't say much more about them than I've already said about the Meditation Money Bunny and the Enchanted Bunny. So.
I'd like to say a few things about the oyster cracker aspect of it. Recently, in just the last game I played on Tabletop Simulator with Jeff, I achieved 4 underground stations and day trippers,
Oh,
which is essentially, day trippers roams around the underground station, so he's always with me because I'm the only player with undergrounds. And the huge benefit to that is that day trippers therefore essentially can't be stolen, because if he were ever stolen, he would just roam back to me and would continuously be roaming back to me. So it becomes a double red bunny that can't be stolen in some sense, which was quite impactful actually. It fit perfectly into the aggressive passive strategy I was using, where I was being quite excessive in my retaliations, using a bit of passive justice warrior, because Frank was playing, even though he was playing pure neutral, but in a pure aggressive meta, neutral looks pretty passive. And let's see, what else was it? And I had nothing to lose because my only bunny was day trippers. They're not
yeah.
going to be able to steal it. They'll eventually kill it. So maybe I'll resurrect it at that point. All of that fun stuff. It was quite impactful. I view these bunnies in a similar manner, in that if your opponents have underground stations, this bunny is strictly weaker than a standard bunny. Not quite as weak as day trippers would be. We can call these day trippers light, except there's
Mm.
7 of them. So if your opponents have undergrounds, it's slightly weaker because it has a very decent chance of being stolen at some points. The dice are rolled quite often. Eventually, the correct die will roll the correct number, and that bunny will be stolen. Feels bad. But if you have underground stations, this bunny is fairly stronger than the average bunny because it therefore can be easily stolen back. So having these bunnies in the deck gives extra value to the underground stations. Not just because you get to steal your opponent's bunnies, but because then they have a difficult time justifying stealing them back because you could quite easily steal them again. Or if you're the initial player of them, if they get stolen, you can just steal. It's a little bit like pseudo law enforcement, except it's implied. It's not an actual law enforcement bunny that feels necessary to remove. It's just a worthless oyster bunny that doesn't actually mean anything, but is a bunny that you'll consistently have. So it's quite interesting. I'm looking forward. Personally, Mikey and I both do have all of the London promos. I know I haven't added mine in, uh,
No, I didn't either.
and Mikey hasn't added his in. So I'm looking forward to playing these once Ketchup Booster is released. And I'm looking forward to testing them out in that aggressive passive sense and in other strategies as well, just as a consistent bunny to be able to keep, just by the fact that it's not an actual threat and it can't actually be easily stolen. Okay, the last group of cards. Hey, we're actually coming pretty accurate on the correct time. We're at the
Mm.
53-minute mark. The last set of cards. The first one is the Coconut Vanilla Sponge. It's one of the atomic pastries, meant to go with the atomic pastries released in Cake Batter, which we don't have yet. But we can talk a little bit about this one. So the atomic sponge, the idea is that it can be matched with any other atomic pastry, and when it does, it explodes with the force of the bunny that it targets has to roll higher than 10 on the brown die, and the bunnies adjacent have to roll higher than 9. So it's interesting that we have sort of a free agent atomic pastry. But we'll be talking more about atomic pastries once we start talking about cake batter, so I think we'll just skip to the next card. Let's talk about British Stone, a very special, non-aggressive. It's a rather simple card, but interesting. Maybe used once by a player to immediately change the level of any weapon to 14. Maybe used at any time. What do you think about this one, Mikey?
I think it's interesting that it's non-aggressive. Because if you are playing, let's see, gotta look one. It's a very special. So say you're playing a level 1 weapon on somebody, so they have to roll the black die, and then you change the level of the oh well you change the level of the weapon to 14. Well, that's pretty aggressive, but also if you don't have a bunny, you can still play it. You could it's still pretty aggressive because if you are in a 3-player game and say you play the level 1 weapon on Frank because you're both playing passive, and then I just play level 4. I play this and change it to level 14.
Are you trying to
Yeah,
counter whisk cycling?
yeah. Too bad for Frank. He's
Feel,
not gonna win.
feels bad.
Well, I think it's interesting that it's not aggressive. I mean, it could be used if you're trying to help somebody and say, it's a level 20 weapon or something, and you lower it to 14, but or somebody played a level 20 weapon on you and you lower it to 14, but yeah, I don't understand why it's not aggressive.
It's certainly interesting. What do you think, Joe?
I kind of like that it's not aggressive. It allows you to get in the middle of other people's battles. um, so I'm wondering, because it's any weapon, what about like a 50-50 weapon? Because 14, if you're rolling a d20, would be better than 50-50, but what would you even roll in that case?
I'm presuming that since the 50-50 doesn't have a weapon level to start with, technically speaking, I'm presuming you can't make a non-existent level equal to 14. Since it's a bit paradoxical, since in principle it doesn't change the dice roll. At least we can't assume it does. So if you change the weapon level to 14, what would it mean that you're rolling the yellow and black die?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I
I
think you'd be right on that.
Yeah, I'm assuming that paradoxical situation is invalid, but that could be clarified otherwise. Um, it's certainly interesting. The situation I was wondering on is what happens with something like the seventh whisk, or is that also considered a degenerate situation, not valid? Would it make it so that every die has to roll higher than 14? Would it make it that every die has to roll higher than 2? 2 times 7? Wait, no, seventh. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. I was thinking for a second that seventh whisk rolled 6 dice. No, that's not right. It's seventh whisk, not sixth whisk. So I'm guessing that's another paradoxical situation, but it might be impactful on something like plutonium radiation. Make that a weapon level 14. Your bunnies have a chance to survive. Perhaps. Let's see. What's another example?
Dated weapons, if the level's high enough.
Quite true. Dated weapons. That's a good one. I wouldn't have thought of that one. If it's the 31st of the month, make it a 14. That's a big shift.
Yeah.
Especially since dated weapons aren't normally affected by clovers. So that's a hard counter to dated weapons, I suppose. Or you could just be born on the 17th of the month and you don't have to worry about that. Get good. Mikey's 2 days off. Didn't get good.
Mhm.
I'm way off.
Can you legally change your birth date? That would be interesting.
Can I declare a different birth date? But
Right before the game begins, declare your birthday is February 12th. Every
February 17th, I'd prefer. Unless it's the 1st or the 9th, then I'd prefer. Well, depends if first turn advantage actually exists. I'd say no. Value threat theory says that first turn advantage has an equal and opposite first turn disadvantage.
Ooh.
So there you go. If it is an advantage, it's just yet another threat to remove. But yeah, level weapon 14. It's an awkward card to play non-aggressively. Uh, Obvious benefits with something like black hole or any ranged weapon, where the bunnies would have potentially had a chance to survive, and now you remove that. Not so consistent benefits with reducing the weapon level. But we'll see how it plays in practice. It's very special, so it's quite easy to play, quite hard to play optimally. Min-max players will not like this card. Okay, and then the final card for today, a play immediately. Tickety boo. If there are more carrots left than players in the game, then all players may choose a carrot. Very friendly card. What do you think, Mikey?
I think it has a funny name, first of all. It's fun to say. Tickety boo. A couple interesting things. Well, first of all, overall, it's a good card. I mean, I think it's a nice play immediately card. It's a nice surprise. Hopefully, sometimes when people pick up play immediately, they just automatically assume they're terrible misfortunes. But it's a nice surprise for a play immediately card. A couple questions that I had. The first one is it still effective if the market's closed?
That is a very good question. I think we can assume not, which is awkward.
Yeah,
But yes, I think we can assume not.
I was kind of thinking that just because of the wording from any Kabbalah's market, which would mean that, like, you know, if there's the two Kabbalah's market and one of them's closed, well, you can take it from Kabbalah's market too. That's
Right.
kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, that does work. Yes, by default with how double markets work. If at least one of them is open, this card will work. So in the rare double closed market situation, feels bad.
Yeah. The second thing was unfair advantage to people who live in who are in Great Britain. How? Oh, I for a moment I didn't read it correctly, and I thought, oh, if everybody's playing in Great Britain, yay for all of you! You all get to choose to. But no, it's only the person who drew the card. And I think it's an interesting clause there that they can draw the second card if they are in Great Britain, and only if it will not end the game.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that clause while I was reading it off. Yeah, if the player who drew it is in Great Britain, they get the extra carrot value. Seems irrelevant for our group, so I don't know if we're planning on traveling to Great Britain anytime soon.
Tabletop Simulator, maybe.
Anyone playing on tabletop, you know, you might be playing with someone from Britain. Time zones might be an issue, but you know, you'll figure it out. This is the second card with advantage for being in Britain. Well, the other one's being born in Britain.
Yeah.
That one's a bit harder to come by, or easier, one way or the other.
If you're in Britain, it's real easy.
Easier or impossible. There is no in between.
Exactly.
What do you think about Joe?
Well, luckily, I've always been loyal to the crown, so I consider myself a British citizen.
Oh, okay. You're currently in Great Britain right now. In other words.
I am. Never mind that
mentally,
this was French territory.
You know,
that's not relevant. I think I really like that it's a play immediately that isn't terrible. Like, it's just like, oh, hey, we get a carrot. That's nice. Maybe a fist fight will break out if Flo hasn't been drawn yet. I don't know, but
it's presumed turn order is what
I would presume. Yeah, that makes
order
sense.
resolution, but yes, unless you're one of our groups that draws carrots randomly for the psychological benefits.
I think that's the right way to do it, personally.
You know, yeah. In the recent game with Jeff and Frank was playing too, Frank was shocked that Jeff and Jonathan were actually choosing their carrots. You know, it's interesting to play with other groups and see the types of strategies that they use. But it's a very friendly card. It reminds me a bit of Community Carrot, but without the condition. Community Carrot requires that only the players with the same zodiac can draw the carrots. Carrot Community Carrot also notably doesn't have a clause that stops it from ending the game, so I suppose that one's less friendly. Because that's a feels bad. There's a reason the clarification about no players having a bunny at the end exists. At which point every player is assumed to have a bunny. It's because Community Carrot could cause that accidentally. Or a player could do it purposefully. But it's interesting. A friendly card all around. Well, that was the last card for today. As far as announcements go, next week, a week from this release, I should say, there will be 2 more Carrot Top Academy lectures. That is, let's see what's next. I've already forgotten. I believe it is the fundamentals for the orange booster, looking at the pawn shop, and a dissections lecture on Carrot Top Royale. That was a fun simulation to write. I was telling Joe Slack about my process there, so that was he watched me suffer.
It was an interesting process.
He watched my dive into Insanity, even though I went into Insanity way long ago, but further delving into it. So look forward to those lectures. Thank you for Joe Slack for guesting on another
thanks for
episode.
inviting me.
You know, I don't know why we keep having you back since you don't even believe Maple Sparkles, but
You know, you didn't. The episode didn't even start, and you were pulling that one out. Like,
yeah, I have to mention it every time.
you should get some new material or something. I don't know.
Well, no, that meme's never going to die. Not until Maple Sparkle actually comes out and it's actually confirmed and canon, even though it basically already is, that Maple Sparkles. And it can never be changed. I want to make sure that it's not changed. Let's see. Did I miss any announcements? Oh, next episode. Let's see. It's debatable. Next episode will, of course, either be the booster review for Orange Booster, or it may be an interview with the president from Ultra Pro. This week we are recording that interview regarding the mass market and Killer Bunnies Light boosters coming out this summer. That will either be next episode or the episode afterwards. So released, let's see, that would be June 12th would be the release for that interview. So look forward to that one for exclusive news on the mass market and Killer Bunnies light sets. Anything you'd like to say, Mikey?
Yeah, well, things are slowly changing. I don't know if things are getting better or worse where you guys are at when it comes to the whole coronavirus situation. Here in North Dakota, things are opening up, and the number of cases every day is going down. So that's a good thing. But just continue to stay safe. If things are opening up, make sure maintain social distancing, wear your masks, do your civic duty however you feel it is fit for you to do it. Stay safe. Play Killer Bunnies on tabletop. And just keep yourselves healthy and happy, you guys. And with that, Jeff bless.
Jeff bless.